Okay, so what does autistic burnout feel like? Let's talk about it. And like I say in all my videos, this is my own personal experience as an autistic person. I'm not sharing what autistic burnout feels like for all autistic people. This is my own personal experiences. Really, like anything to do with autistic people, how any of their traits, challenges, strengths, experiences manifest are all completely individual. No two autistic people are the same. I can only talk on my own behalf, but let's get real personal. Let's dig deep here, okay? Let's talk about how autistic burnout manifests for me. And we'll start with the physical side. Autistic burnout can feel like a really intense level of physical exhaustion. And you know what? It's actually pretty clear in most of the stuff we know about autistic burnout already that the kind of things that can feel like depression, can feel like anxiety, can even feel like a deep sadness are actually the feelings you can get from autistic burnout. So describing those feelings, of course, are going to sound like you're describing other things, but you're not. You're describing autistic burnout and how it manifests for you, and those types of feelings or those types of descriptors are not uncommon. So I just wanted to put that out there in case you start to watch this video and go, hang on a second, what's this guy talking about? Autistic burnout, this guy's just sad or depressed or, whatever. No, there's no use trying to explain to you my idea of physical exhaustion. I think you can work that out for yourself. You just feel exhausted. You just feel tired. You just feel like you would rather do nothing than do something. Now, I would choose to not do even the things that I like this, and just sit on the couch and watch TV or sleep. And again, this is where people can go, hang on, that sounds like depression. But again, these are just the ways that my feelings are manifesting because of this level of physical exhaustion. It comes to the point where it's like, I feel I'm burnt out and I can no longer continue to function until I can somehow reboot, power up again. For me, autistic burnout feels like I can no longer control or manage or handle my emotions. I just all of a sudden struggle with that push-pull with emotions, how to express them and communicate them and deal with them and understand them, and identify them. It just kind of goes out the window. And that can lead to many things. I find when I'm experiencing autistic burnout, I may get angry or sad or agitated more often. It just kind of happens where potentially when I'm not burnt out, I'm able to manage my emotions more. I may feel them coming up and I may be able to deal with them, not suppress them, but deal with them. Where when I'm burnt out, it's almost like the filter or the ability to know they're coming or to understand them at all has completely gone, and they kind of just jump out, right? Suddenly, bang, anger, or bang, sadness, or bang, agitation. And a lot of times when I'm in an autistic burnout period, my wife can say things like, you seem really agitated. You're really agitated today. You okay? Like I don't even know I'm being agitated, and just my body language is showing her I'm agitated. Or out of nowhere, I'll just get really angry or really sad. Or these things that just seem to jump out of me. And I guess it's because my gatekeeper or my ability to be able to function and manage, understand, and interpret all these feelings just seems to have gone away. So that's how emotions and autistic burnout can feel to me. And certainly a sign that autistic burnout may be on the way is if you start to experience more meltdowns and shutdowns. Of course, meltdowns and shutdowns, to be clear for those who might not know what these are in an autistic sense, these are uncontrollable actions or responses or reactions. So they're not tantrums. See, a tantrum is something that is done willingly and knowingly, and in essence to manipulate, to alter a situation to get what you want, right? That's essentially or even just let off steam, right? That's a tantrum. And everyone throws them. I don't see the big problem with tantrums. If they let off steam and you can have a bit of a laugh, whatever, who cares? And it's just part of life. There's no use shying away from life. See, meltdowns and shutdowns are not that. As an autistic person, if you get to the point where you have an autistic meltdown, which I would class as an outward manifestation of the world becoming too much, of you being overstimulated, something has just set off your autistic brain in a way where it can no longer accept, process, understand, deal with whatever stimuli the world is providing. And that may manifest in many different ways outwardly, but A meltdown is clearly an autistic reaction to what I've just talked about, that once it reaches that point is not controllable. So to be clear, and this might be something that might be new to parents or carers of autistic kids, which I find ridiculous, but you can't reach an autistic child once they are melting down. You can keep them safe, you can be there for them, you can't reach them, you can't stop them. Oh, stop being so silly, you're gonna, yeah, oh yeah, no worries. Let me just turn, no, hey, just give us a sec here, hey, yeah. No, a shutdown is an internal meltdown, in effect. I look at a shutdown as exactly like the computer term. The autistic brain has become overwhelmed. Maybe it's been overworked. It simply cannot handle, calibrate, deal with the stimuli or the world around it, and it actually shuts down. Instead of the outward manifestation, it's inward. It shuts down. The computer turns off, restarts, reboots, whatever you want to call it. Now, again, it can't be reached. And I find when I'm experiencing these things, I know autistic burnout is on the way and I've got to work out ways to avoid it, avert it. But made worse is when I actually am experiencing periods of autistic burnout, due to all the factors we've talked about, I find that I experience more meltdowns and more shutdowns. Because again, when you have autistic burnout, how it feels to me is the ways of managing, controlling, understanding, doing the things that you work hard on as an autistic person to do in life, you're no longer able to do that at the level you usually do it at. So of course, who's controlling it? Who's averting the meltdowns and the shutdowns? If you're already burnt out as an autistic person, it's much harder to, virtually impossible. So meltdowns and shutdowns will be regular things until you're given the time and space to fully recover, to fully reboot. See, this is how autistic burnout feels to me. It's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's debilitating, it's exhausting, it's real. A comorbidity of mine is anxiety. So I'm autistic and I also have a diagnosis of social anxiety disorder and general anxiety disorder, or GAD. And I find in periods of autistic burnout, my anxiety is heightened to the point where I don't think anything could control it. Therapies, medicine, whatever. It gets to the point where the anxiety can't be understood or controlled, and you can't turn that amygdala off, right? You're just constantly, whoa, I'm in danger kind of thing. And that adds to the exhaustion. I also find that some of my autistic traits seem to really ramp up when I'm experiencing autistic burnout. Technically, if you're an autistic person and some of these things resonate with you and you seem to have periods where you do a lot of the things that you may do as an autistic person more, you may start to think, hang on, that feels to me like my experience. Well, potentially you were in a period of autistic burnout. For me, some of my autistic traits really do increase or ramp up. Things like stimming. We've talked about this in past videos, but for those that are wondering what stimming is, it's basically a self-stimulatory action, okay? So a way of self-soothing, self-stimulating, self-regulating. Does that make sense? In an autistic sense. We do things when we need to process things around us. It helps us concentrate or understand or process, and also sometimes it just soothes us or regulates us. So it's actually a really important part of an autistic person's life. In fact, it's probably an important part of a lot of people's life. Have you ever been called fidgety or nervous? Well, as an autistic person, I'm not fidgety or nervous, I'm stimming. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to hear what you're saying. So I'm not going to look at you, but I may do weird things with my fingers, or I may touch my hair or whatever. But that's because I want to concentrate. Now, as a non-autistic person, you may think this guy's not looking at me. He's probably not listening to me, and he's playing with his hair and touching his fingers and all. Well, I don't know what's going on with this guy. What's the deal with this guy? That's actually me saying, hey, I'm actually genuinely listening to you. And I listen to you by not looking at you, but by kind of stimming, by processing, concentrating, listening. So the stimming absolutely ramps up. And the big one for me, and certainly at the moment, and definitely during my most recent period of autistic burnout, is using my hair. Now, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, my hair is far longer than I actually want it to be. I like my hair much shorter, but it's been that period of time where getting a haircut's hard, and I just couldn't be stuffed. So my hair's got much longer, which means it's something to play with. Now, I don't mean like gently stroke. Like I mean quite often, almost all the time, I will be like pulling at my hair. It's like, I'll put my fingers through it and then I'll kind of like pull it up, right? So I'll go through it and I'll kind of pull it up. I really like to, so I don't know what you call it, pulling, teasing, grabbing, I don't know. But to me, that's stimming. I'm doing that almost constantly. I don't know, it somehow helps me bring myself back. And that might also be classed as repetitive behaviors. And repetitive behaviors for me, they can definitely increase during periods of autistic burnout. Sticking with the things you know, you like, you love, just doing them constantly, and pushing back to routine change, or pushing back to any idea of having to do anything else than what you actually need to do and want to do. And I guess that can also feed into not only routine change, but sensory challenges. Because if you're taken out of your comfort zone when you're in that autistic burnout period, well, you're probably going to be surrounded by sensory challenges, sounds, noises, smells, environments that you're not used to, or you just couldn't possibly manage at this period of time. So of course you want to avoid those. So the routine changes, you don't want that. The repetitive behaviors, the same routine, avoiding the sensory overload of the outside world. These are all really important things. They absolutely will increase during periods of autistic burnout. There's also a thing called echolalia. Some people say echolalia, but here in Australia, and certainly if you study it, I don't know, medicine at uni or something or whatever, you'll be taught echolalia. I mean, I'm not an academic, I'm not going to go into like the academic side of it, but this is something I definitely do, and I do way more in autistic burnout periods. To the point where sometimes I go, you know what, I can't believe how out of control this is. I even know it. And it's things like repeating quotes from movies, or singing certain lines of songs, really annoying or funny voice, to me funny. In many ways, just echoing the world, echoing the thing. And for me, the echolalia manifests in pretty bizarre ways, like using quotes from movies or TV shows or songs, or, repeating back what people say in silly voices. They think they're being belittled or, made fun of or attacked, or what does that movie quote have to do with this situation? In the period of autistic burnout for me, that's the echolalia really increases. And I do it all the time, but it really increases. And it's almost like I lose my own verbal identity. I kind of just become a walking, talking, inappropriately odd quote machine. It's like not remotely relevant to what's happening here, but thanks, Orion. Completing tasks or doing things that I could usually do easily or willingly or for pleasure can be really hard when I'm in a period of autistic burnout. I don't know how to explain it apart from, it's kind of like for that period, all my skills and abilities just go missing. They actually vanish, disappear. It's like a disconnect. And clearly for me, it can be very frustrating with the kind of work that I do, the creative content-based work. If my skills and my abilities, my creative brain, or my energy in doing things just dissipates or kind of shuts down, it debilitates me. And that's not a good result for me. I'm like, oh, thank God, I can just rest and do nothing. I mean, there's things you actually still want to achieve, or basic things for your family. Cooking dinner, doing basic things, putting kids to bed, or whatever. I mean, these are things that take effort. They might not take a lot of skill, maybe they do, but either way, it's like, I just can't achieve this. What the hell is wrong with me? It can be really debilitating and really deflating. And in addition to that, I find that I also can really lose like speech, my verbal abilities. I don't become completely non-verbal, but my speech absolutely decreases. You don't really talk. You might make noises or short words or sentences. And also when you do try to talk, you can't ever find the words. Like when you try to have some sort of conversation, when you're in a period of autistic burnout, I find, my experience is, I struggle to find the words. I struggle to find the things that I want to say. I can feel them in my brain, but I can't get them out of my mouth. So it's almost like a self-perpetuating cycle. It's like I can't find the words or work out what I'm trying to get out of my mouth, but then I can't talk, or I don't want to talk, and it's what causes what. But it has this real impact. So your emotional control and the way you communicate and interact, which is clearly already part of your neurodevelopmental disability, it just falls away. And those loss of skills and abilities and motivations can make it a really deep hole to dig yourself out of. And look, probably we can just lay the blame directly on the fact that as an autistic person, we are literally living and existing and playing by the rules of a neurotypical world, a world that is not built or designed for people with a different brain, for autistic people. And that might sound simplistic, but I think the causes of autistic burnout, although everyone experiences them differently, are really rooted in the same thing, in the idea that we live in a world that doesn't actually understand and accept us. So I guess we should talk about causes. I'd say one of the absolute key triggers is masking. So if you don't know much about masking, I've done some videos on the idea that we have to camouflage or mask or hide or suppress our true, authentic, autistic selves from the world at large, because if we don't, well, we're in effect rejected, because we're providing, I guess, a person or a way of experiencing and communicating and dealing with the world that other people, neurotypical people, non-autistic people aren't comfortable with. So of course we're punished for that. So really it's a bit like the old Pavlov's dogs, right? I mean, I've been conditioned. Autistic people have been conditioned to suppress their true selves, because from a very early age, if we at any point be our true autistic selves, there's a lot of pushback, a lot of rejection. There's a lot of potential anger and abandonment. And no, I don't accept you being like that. But for an autistic person, it's like, hang on, if I be myself, this is what happens. And if I don't be myself, if I hide my true self and try and act as normal as I can, not be normal, act normal in the neurotypical sense, then I'm treated better. So I'm conditioned to hide my true autistic self. And as an autistic person, this starts very early in life, and it can get to the point where you actually forget how to take the mask off, or you lose the abilities and the instincts to know who is and isn't the real you, because you've spent a whole life masking your true authentic autistic self. So for me, masking is obviously pretty critical in the outside world. It's very critical in a workplace. Look, it's even quite critical at home with your kids and your partner. If you don't mask to a certain degree in life in general, people are going to see your true autistic self. Now for me, that's a good thing, but for a lot of people that aren't autistic, for good or bad reasons, for right or wrong, for just it is what it is, aren't always going to see it as a good thing. It's going to be confronting or uncomfortable or awkward or off-putting or just inappropriate or wrong. Either way, it actually is part of everyday life. It doesn't just affect strangers or people in the workplace. It can affect neurotypical or non-autistic family members and friends. So the idea of masking for me on a daily basis in the real world, in workplaces, at home, well, I guess the result is it's beneficial to everyone around me. But for me, it takes a big toll, because masking on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and really a minute-by-minute basis, is draining. To maintain a mask, a facade, to camouflage, to suppress, takes an extraordinary amount of energy, an amount of focus, an amount of effort. These things aren't easy, right? To put in effort and focus and energy means that at some point you will burn that out. So that's a clear trigger that can lead me to autistic burnout. For me, I find executive function can be an absolute trigger. The reason why I say that is because utilizing executive function and being able to juggle the many things in your life, the many stresses in your life, work stuff, family stuff, all the different things a human being on the planet has to do can be overwhelming. So as an autistic person, I can find, this is just my experience, my inability to be able to juggle or achieve or complete or deal with multiple tasks at once can lead me to, for starters, a meltdown or a shutdown. But in doing that day in, day out, that as a lifestyle, day in, day out, definitely contributes to me experiencing periods of autistic burnout. And I think there's a lot of things that feed into that. So executive function, in addition to things like impulse control, these are the things that I can really struggle with. So when I have daily masking, daily executive function stresses, daily executive function issues with the juggling, the maintaining, the doing of tasks, the attention being put in all directions, when that starts to happen on a daily basis together, as an autistic person, I can find it extremely hard to continue that for a prolonged period of time. So at some point, I mean, I can maintain it, I can give it a crack, because I want to have a successful life. I want to have a loving, caring relationship with my wife and kids. And I do my best to maintain that. But at some point, as an autistic person, my brain decides that's the end for a while. This is not something you can maintain. And again, looking at it from my point of view, I can say it's masking and executive function and these things. But in the end, really what happens is, over a prolonged period of time, if I'm forced to be someone I'm not and to try and accomplish things I simply cannot accomplish or am not capable of accomplishing on a regular basis or day in, day out, it's going to have a cost. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not capable of this. What I'm trying to say is my brain is my brain. Some people try to sugarcoat their life. I think that's ridiculous, okay? You can work your bum off to get better at things, right? To develop skills, to improve, to grow. But it is a reality that you are capable of what you are capable of. And my brain is wired in a way where I am not capable of certain executive functions or the ability to not be myself day in, day out for a prolonged period of time. It simply isn't possible. And compounding the executive function issues that I can have are the extra stresses like I talked about. But where it sits today, there seems to be some sort of link of autistic burnout to autistic adults. And I can attribute that from my own experiences as the increase in stresses. So as a child, of course, there are stresses. But as you grow as an autistic person, you may want to settle down with a partner. You may even want to get married. You may want to have kids. You may want to move somewhere and buy property or build a house or start a career. All these things are part of life, and I encourage autistic people watching this video to go with what you want to do in life. Don't let people hold you back. Don't let people get in your way. It's important that you strive for what you truly want in life. If these are the things, like me, that you want in life, go get them. What I'll also say is it's not going to be easy. Don't let your family members, your friends, your partner, or even more importantly, yourself delude you, misguide you. I promise you, it is not easy, but it's achievable. And when you achieve it, you will experience something you've never experienced before. Raising kids is stressful, it's hard. It's rewarding, but it's a stress. Having a house, having bills, having a mortgage potentially, maintaining a job, maintaining a life, having time for yourself. What's that? These create stresses. So these are the things that build on top of masking and executive function issues when you are forced to juggle multiple tasks, multiple people's feelings and needs. When all these things are put on top of each other, plus the daily stresses of just being in that life or environment, which again is extremely rewarding, but we have to be honest and real here. These are the things that end up building up over a prolonged period of time to an experience of autistic burnout. And added to the masking and the executive function challenges and all the stresses that comes with adult life, because again, I firmly believe adult life continues to put more stresses on you. I don't think as you get older, there are less stresses. People think, oh, you can retire. Well, no, there's always stresses in life. Maybe it's the grandkids stressing you out. Maybe it's your adult kids stressing you out. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's housing, maybe it's illnesses. It doesn't go away, the stresses just change. And probably the last significant contributing factor to me experiencing autistic burnout would be routine changes. And this is a classic autistic trait, an inability to accept or deal with changes in routine, things that shouldn't happen happening. It can be very hard to recover from that. And again, as an autistic adult, I think changes increase. Increased change is a more regular experience for autistic adults. I mean, it has to be. Think about it. When you're a child, everything is pretty structured, okay? And that might be because carers or family members create that for you, or it might be because your life is just more simplistic. But as an adult, for me, I'll give you personal experiences. Just the school holidays, for me, even though I know they're coming, is still a big change. If my week is usually made up of working, creating content like this, doing things that I need to do in my life and for our family, if I go from being able to do that to having to basically turn off, stop all of that and just focus on my children and my family. And again, you might think, well, why are you complaining about that for? I'm not complaining, I'm saying it's a change, right? I go from doing the things that I need to do to not being able to achieve really anything and to just focus on this school holiday thing. And that's a change. That affects me because I want to make content like this. I might not be able to a lot during the school holidays. When you have an autistic child or when you have a young family, you can't just, hey, see you later guys, I'm gonna go off and record a video now. Like, yeah, seriously, yeah, right. When you can't do the things you usually do, that's going to affect me as an autistic person. What if I have an interview lined up for a podcast, or I'm recording a video, or I'm about to do something important at work or for the family on a particular day, and then the night before that day, one of the kids gets sick, can't go to school, I'm at home with the kids, nothing happens that day. I wasn't expecting a child to get sick at the last minute and me then have to cancel my entire day. And these kind of adult-like stresses and changes can have a big impact, and they pile up. So now you know what autistic burnout feels like for me. You know the things that cause it. Well, the question, how do I recover from autistic burnout? How do I get myself out of a period of autistic burnout? It's a good question. For me personally, it's a really hard thing to navigate. Think about it. Like I've said, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an autistic advocate. I can't just remove myself from life, from the stresses of life, which is work, family, juggling. I can't just remove myself from that for a prolonged period of time until I can recover, right? Well, that would be ridiculous. You can't just desert your family and walk away. And this is the reality of being an autistic adult that chooses to have a partner and a family. And I choose that, and I want that, and I value that. But I have to understand that autistic burnout is going to happen more often, and there can be autistic adults out there watching this right now and saying, autistic burnout, that should be like, I don't know, once a year or once a decade, or well, for me it's not. And there's many reasons. Number one, like I've talked about all my causes and how it feels, and they're the reasons. We're not going to go back over it, but there's also other reasons, like once you get it, how do you get out of it? How do you recover if you can't put yourself in a environment that helps you recover? There's only so much you can do. Removing stresses, like we've talked about, removing the things that impact executive function and stresses, they're the things that you absolutely need to look at. Okay, so if you want to recover from autistic burnout, you need to look at the things that got you there, and you need to try to remove them, to take yourself away from those situations, those environments. Now, as I said, it's pretty hard for an autistic dad, an autistic husband, but there's things you can do. So for me, look, from my point of view, unfortunately, the things that I can control are my advocacy work, my content. So creating blogs, doing podcasts, doing videos, editing, promoting, producing, all the things, and that's what I cut. You have to. So if I had a day that was absolutely protected, there was no kids or family around that I could do content, but I was in a period of burnout, I would literally burn my entire day protected for me to do content, doing nothing, as a way of trying to get myself out of that burnout so I can hopefully produce some content the next week or the next day or whatever. So that's the first thing to go. Look, it's a tricky situation, and it's an individual situation. You will know what are the stresses causing this autistic burnout. How can I step away from them, remove myself from them, but maintain the life that I need to maintain, which may be a career, maybe a commitment to a partner, to children, to family, to whoever. That's really a question for you. What I do know works, regardless of the situation, is to, certainly before you have these periods, is to start to be smart and to be aware and identify your known triggers, the things that set you off, that trigger you, that might cause the sensory overload, that might cause the meltdowns or the shutdowns. So you have to understand, these are my triggers. These are the things that affect me the most, that put me in these positions. You have to identify them. And then once you identify them, you can work through them, you can avoid them. Because triggers can be avoided. Triggers, it isn't a perfect world, but you can avoid certain triggers and certain things. You just make the decision that's most relevant and appropriate for you. If you ever feel like you may be experiencing autistic burnout, try to identify, try to look back, try to debrief on the causes and the triggers that got you there. And when you're experiencing those, or when you found yourself in a period of autistic burnout, control the controllables. Withdraw, take yourself away from the situations and the triggers and the environments that got you there, that will keep you there. And then you will absolutely recover, or even better, avoid autistic burnout. Now, if my experiences of autistic burnout have resonated with you, you should feel free to check out my other videos on autistic burnout, or check out any of my videos in general. And please, if you get the chance, rate, comment, share them. And it'd mean so much to me if you help me raise that level of understanding and acceptance of autistic people by simply subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Talk soon.